But first, tensions between France and the US are rising as Paris summons the US ambassador to France. This after he wrote a letter to Emmanuel Macron accusing the French leader of failing to do enough to fight antisemitism. The French Foreign Ministry says the letter, which was published by the Wall Street Journal, violates international law and notably the obligation not to interfere with the internal affairs of another country. For more on this, I'm joined by Kethevane Gorjestani, our International Affairs Editor. Kethevane, what exactly is Charles Kushner accusing France of, and how is the French government responding?
Well, in that long letter that Charles Kushner sent to French President Emmanuel Macron, he talks about the dramatic rise of anti-Semitism in France and the lack of sufficient action, according to his word, by the French government to tackle that rise in anti-Semitism. But he also talks about French foreign policy. He talks about the public statements haranguing Israel and the gestures toward recognition of a Palestinian state as moves that are emboldening extremism. He also indicates at the end there, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, plain and simple. He also claimed that in France, not a day passes without Jews being assaulted on the streets, synagogues and schools defaced, or Jewish-owned businesses vandalized. So really painting a very bleak picture of what it means to be a Jew in France today. It is pretty rare for an ambassador to so publicly and so directly criticize the host country where they're posted, and the leader of that country, especially when it is an ally. And so the response of the French was equally strong worded, with the foreign ministry announcing that summon, but also dismissing the allegations, responding to those allegations. They admitted that there had been a rise in anti-Semitic acts in France, but they said that they've taken measures to combat that anti-Semitic rise, saying that they had reinforced security. They also called the allegations unacceptable and pointed, as you said, to that violation of international law, which is that an ambassador of a foreign country is not supposed to interfere with the domestic politics. Rather, they're supposed simply to report back to their country to determine that. And so that's why you're seeing this move of summoning an allies ambassador to the foreign ministry, and we'll see what that brings us.
Now, this letter sounds a lot like criticism that we've heard from the Israeli government in the past, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Just earlier last week, Benjamin Netanyahu sent a letter to Emmanuel Macron where he said that your call for a Palestinian state pours fuel on this anti-Semitic fire. He also said that it emboldens those who menace French Jews and encourage the Jew hatred now stalking your streets. And it was not just Emmanuel Macron who was the target of the Prime Minister's ire. You had other countries that have announced their plans to recognize Palestinian statehood, like France did, including the UK, Canada, Australia, who've also gotten a lot of criticism from the Israelis. But what you see in the wording of Charles Kushner's letter is basically the same elements that we've heard from the Israeli Prime Minister. But it's one thing for the Prime Minister of Israel to send a letter to a counterpart, to a head of state, Emmanuel Macron, to talk about something that directly involves his country. It's a whole other thing to have a third country's ambassador send a direct letter to a president, and it shows just how much on this topic, on the topic of Palestinian statehood, on the topic of the war in Gaza, how closely aligned the U.S. still is with not only Israel, but also the Israeli government, specifically Benjamin Netanyahu.
Kethevane Gorjestani, thank you.